words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case.
The summer of 2018 should have been a joyous one for the Watts family. 33-year-old Chris Watts and his wife, Shanann, 34, had just found out they were expecting a son to join their 4-year-old and 3-year-old daughters, Bella and Celeste, in their suburban home in Frederick, Colorado, about 27 miles north of Denver. From the outside, they appeared to be a happy suburban family, but Shanann's friends had recently started hearing about trouble in paradise. Still, no one could have ever guessed the chillingly brutal murders that were about to put an end to their happily ever after. This is how the Watts family was annihilated. Shanann Rzucek crossed paths with Christopher Watts on Facebook in 2012, setting the stage for their future together. Both from North Carolina, Shanann hailed from Aberdeen, while Chris was from Spring Lake. The couple tied the knot in Charlotte, North Carolina, on November 3, 2012, marking the beginning of their journey as husband and wife. However, not everyone was happy about their marriage. Chris's parents, Cindy and Ronnie Watts, did not attend the wedding. Cindy later said she didn't go because she didn't get along with Shanann and was worried about how she treated Chris. A year after getting married, Shanann and Chris made a big decision to buy a new house in the beautiful town of Frederick, Colorado. This move marked the start of a new chapter in their life together. After moving to Colorado, Shanann and Chris were excited to start a family. Their dream came true on December 17, 2013, when their daughter Bella Marie was born. 2 years later, on July 17, 2015, they happily welcomed their second daughter, Celeste Catherine, also known as Cece. In 2010, Shanann found out she had lupus, a long-term illness that causes joint pain, skin rashes, and tiredness, with no cure. Lupus happens when the immune system wrongly attacks healthy cells and tissues, causing inflammation and tissue damage. This diagnosis meant that having children might be difficult for Shanann, which was heartbreaking for her because she always wanted to be a mother. Despite the challenges, Shanann was blessed with the joy of having 2 children. People who knew Shanann described her as a loving and kind person. She always seemed too good to be true, spreading kindness and positivity. Shanann was determined to create the best life for herself and her loved ones. Her lively personality and genuine warmth touched everyone around her. As great as Shanann was as a friend, she was even better as a mother. She loved her 2 daughters, Bella and Cece, more than anything else in the world. Shanann was fully dedicated to taking care of and supporting her children in every way. Social media held substantial importance in Shanann's life. She utilized these platforms to share videos depicting her life and showcasing her lively personality. Her friends and family found joy in watching these videos, offering glimpses into her daily routines and her daughters' lives. In June 2015, Shanann and Chris faced a severe financial crisis that led them to file for bankruptcy. The couple struggled under the weight of significant financial burdens, including a large mortgage payment, car payments, and mounting medical bills. Additionally, they had accumulated a substantial amount of credit card debt. At the time of the bankruptcy filing, Chris was employed at Anadarko Petroleum, while Shanann works as a nurse specialist at a local children's hospital. However, by 2016, Shanann had embarked on a new career as a consultant for the MLM company Lavelle, selling a nutritional supplement called Thrive, which was delivered through a patch. Shanann's enthusiasm for her job was infectious. Cynthia DeRosset, a co-worker, remarked that every person who connected with her felt her light. Despite the financial hardships, Shanann was content with her life with her husband and 2 daughters, yet she yearned for one more pregnancy. Her heart longed for a baby boy to complete their family. In spring 2018, Shanann received an unexpected yet delightful surprise when she discovered she was pregnant for the third time. The news filled her with excitement and anticipation. Wanting to capture her husband's reaction, Shanann devised a plan. She decided to surprise Chris by telling him the exciting news on May 28th. As she awaited his arrival, Shanann wore a shirt that displayed the words, "Oops, we did it again." In the video, Chris can be seen entering the room, completely oblivious to the surprise awaiting him. He appeared shocked and caught off guard, and not necessarily happy.
We did it again. I like that shirt. So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know. Just the test.
That's awesome.
After further testing, Shanann discovered she was having a baby boy. Shanann and Chris were overwhelmed with joy. They decided to name their little bundle of joy Nico. During the summer of 2018, pregnant with Nico, Shanann travelled to North Carolina with her children for holiday. Chris, on the other hand, stayed behind in Colorado for work. While Shanann was in North Carolina visiting family, she observed that Chris's communication with her had shifted. Strangely, Chris stopped responding to her messages and calls, leaving her puzzled. When she inquired about the matter, Chris shared that he had taken on additional responsibilities at work due to the arrival of new employees. However, he insisted that the situation was not cause for concern. On the final week of her holiday, Chris flew to North Carolina to join Shanann and their daughters. The family was excited for his arrival. Bella and Cece ran to Chris when he stepped off the plane, and he hugged them tightly. But with Shanann, Chris only nodded, not giving her a kiss. Hurt by this, she texted a friend, saying Chris felt different and she barely recognized him. Shanann told her friend that Chris refused to talk to her in person, even though they were in the same room. They texted each other instead, and she shared a picture of them sitting on separate couches, facing away. She's worried that Chris might be seeing another woman, but her friend reassured her that Chris loved her too much for that. She also revealed in a text that Chris confessed he didn't think they were compatible anymore. This shocked Shanann, who always believed in their strong love. Chris even admitted he hoped her pregnancy would change his feelings, but it didn't. Shanann was heartbroken, always cherishing their relationship and believing their love could overcome any challenge. She knew their marriage was in trouble and suggested couples counseling. She believed it could help, but Chris refused. Shanann was willing to try everything to save their relationship, but Chris wasn't interested. After returning to Colorado from a trip to North Carolina, Shanann, Chris, and their daughters got back into their routine. Soon, Shanann then travelled to Arizona for a 3-day business trip. While there, her friends noticed she seemed worried and not her usual cheerful self. One evening in her hotel room, Shanann told her friend Nicole that Chris had doubts about their relationship and didn't want to try counselling. On August 11th, while with her friends, she got a notification about a high restaurant bill on her joint account with Chris. She suspected Chris might be with another woman, leaving her feeling uneasy and doubtful. On Monday, August 13th, Shanann returned home from her business trip and was dropped off at home by her close friend Nicole Atkinson. Footage from Shanann's doorbell camera showed her entering the house at around 1:48 a.m. Later in the day, her friend tried to call her to ask about her scheduled appointment with her dentist, but she was not answering her phone. However, when she missed a business meeting at 12:30 p.m., Nicole became very concerned. Nicole knew something was wrong when no one had heard anything from Shanann all day. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right. Feeling a sense of urgency, Nicole made the decision to drive to Shanann's house. As she approached the house, her stomach sank. Shanann's van was parked in the garage, and the shoes she wore every day were by the front door. Nicole contacted Chris to inform him that they were unable to get in touch with Shanann. Chris assured them not to worry, as he believed that she might have taken their daughters to a friend's house. His response puzzled Shanann's friends, as they were all in contact with one another and none of them knew her whereabouts. She did not have any plans to meet with any of them. Nicole then contacted the Frederick Police Department to report Shanann and her 2 daughters missing.
Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. What's going on?
So my friend, we were out of town for a business trip this weekend.
All right.
And I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. She's 15 weeks pregnant. She wasn't feeling well. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9. And I told her to let me know if she needed me to take her. She's got 2 little girls. And she was very distraught over the weekend, wasn't eating normally or drinking. And we kept trying to force it on her because she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband and her supposedly are separating, but she didn't know this. She thought they were just having issues. He disclosed that to me today.
Okay.
Because I called him and I was like, have you talked or heard from Shanann since she left for work this morning? Because I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are by the front door.
She only has 1 vehicle?
No, they only have the 1 vehicle in his work truck.
Okay. That's what I'm asking.
She
There's
took
not
the girls and went on a play date, but they're 4 and 2.
After Nicole called the police, an officer from the Frederick Police Department arrived at Shanann and Chris's house. From the officer's body cam footage, it was clear that Nicole was deeply distressed over her missing friend. As Nicole was explaining everything she knew about Shanann and her daughters, Chris pulled up to the house. Chris got out of his car and approached the officer.
Scott, how you doing?
How's it going?
So this is the only vehicle she would have?
Only one that, yeah.
She would drive? Okay.
But it was clear he did not share the same level of concern as Nicole, even though his wife and daughters were missing.
Oh, from home?
While searching Shanann and Chris's house, the officer stumbled upon Shanann's phone and purse. Inside her purse, the officer discovered medications for Shanann and her 2 daughters. Additionally, the officer found Shanann's wedding ring on the bedside table, but Shanann and her 2 daughters were nowhere to be found. A neighbor invited the officer and Chris to review footage from his security camera. The camera was positioned to capture part of Shanann and Chris's driveway and garage. In the footage, Chris is seen opening the garage door, moving around, and leaving the home at 5:28 a.m. Only Chris was spotted leaving the house. Shanann and her daughters were never seen leaving. As they watched the footage on the TV screen, Chris's demeanor began to change. He started to appear nervous and fidgety, as if he was uncomfortable with what he was seeing.
Get his info real quick.
Even the neighbor noticed Chris's odd behavior. When Chris left the house, the neighbor leaned into the officer and expressed doubts about Chris's behavior.
He never backs his truck into the driveway. Diesel.
By the following day, the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation joined the search for Shanann, Bella, and Cece. The Boulder Police Department also provided cadaver dogs, which were used to search the property and inside the house. As the officers examined the interior of the home, one handler noted that they smelled cleaning solutions and remarked that the house appeared too clean. This comment raised suspicions and led the officers to scrutinize the cleanliness of the home more closely. The presence of cleaning solutions suggested that someone might have taken steps to conceal evidence or clean up potential clues. During the search of Chris's house, he gave an interview to 2 Denver TV stations outside his residence. In this interview, Chris said he wanted his family back and pleaded with whoever had Shanann, Bella, and Celeste to return them home. However, Chris's behavior during the interview raised some eyebrows. He appeared cold and unemotional, which puzzled those who knew him.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
Shanann's friends, who were watching the interview, felt disgusted by Chris's nonchalant demeanor. That same day, August 14th, Special Agent Coda interviewed Chris. During the interview, Chris expressed his belief that Shanann might have taken the girls and gone to a friend's house to decompress. Agent Coda asked Chris about their marriage during the interview. Chris responded by stating that he had never cheated on Shanann, and as far as he knew, she had never cheated on him either. He said that he and Shanann were the type of people who would confide in one another if they ever felt like straying. During the interview, Agent Coda noticed peculiar behavior from Chris. He observed that Chris made frequent hand movements towards his neck, which caught his attention. Agent Coda's suspicions grew. leading him to believe that the movements may hint at something deeper. At one point during the interview, Agent Coda excused himself briefly and informed the other officers working on the case that he thought Chris might have strangled Shanann. As more time passed with Shanann and her daughters missing, the feelings of worry and despair intensified among the loved ones who knew her. Despite their doubts that Shanann was safe, they desperately clung to the hope that Bella and Cece might still be alive somewhere. Chris was released from the police department after a 3-hour interrogation. However, the police made arrangements for him to return on the following day, August 15th, for a polygraph test. Chris agreed to fulfill this request. Tammy Lee, from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, conducted Chris's polygraph test. During the polygraph, Chris denied knowing where Shanann was and claimed to have not caused her disappearance. Chris would have needed a score of about -4 to pass this test. Chris scored a dismal -8 on the polygraph. This outcome left the detectives convinced that Chris was responsible for the deaths of his wife and daughters. However, they still needed to persuade him to admit it. During the interview, Chris requested the presence of his father, Ronnie. Initially skeptical, fearing it might lead to Chris seeking legal representation, the officers eventually allowed Ronnie into the interview room. Chris met with his father and confessed to murdering Shanann. However, he attempted to justify his actions by claiming that Shanann had killed their daughters, Bella and Cece, so he killed Shanann out of rage. Upon hearing this excuse, Shanann's friends immediately recognized it as a lie. They knew Shanann would never harm her daughters, as she loved them deeply and was eagerly anticipating the birth of her first son, Nico. Furthermore, he confessed to having an affair with a co-worker named Nicole Kessinger, expressing regret for his infidelity. Chris admitted to burying Shanann in a shallow grave at one of his work sites and disposing of the bodies of his daughters in oil tanks. However, even after his arrest and being taken into custody, he continued to deny harming them. The detectives remained unconvinced by his claims that Shanann had hurt their daughters. Eventually, Chris pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But it does not end here. Few years after being sentenced, Chris gave an interview from his jailhouse. During the interview, he gave a disturbing account of how the murder occurred. In the early hours of Monday, August 13th, after returning from her business trip, Shanann confronted Chris about his extramarital affair and threatened to take their daughters away. Chris stated that he had strangled her, then he put her body in his truck and drove it, along with his 2 daughters, to his work site. Once there, Chris claimed that he took the lives of his 2 young daughters, one by one. This grim revelation revealed that one daughter had to witness the death of her sister before succumbing to the same fate. Detective states that this version may be close to be true, but only Chris knows the reason for his action. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.